All right, welcome to a special episode, Fault Lines listeners. We are broadcasting to you live from Prague, Czechia at Max's Steakhouse in Newtown, Prague. We have with us an awesome group of Americans, Czechs, a broad group of people from around the globe who happen to be Fault Lines fans. So we're thrilled to be out here. We have our traditional Fault Lines crew, Lester Munson, Martha Miller, and our new Czech fan club. And we're going to take questions straight from the audience. So I'm going to hop out. I might throw some dots in early on in this conversation, but I'll leave you to the team, and it's going to be an awesome, great episode. So get excited, Fault Lines fans. Woo!
Good. So, first of all, welcome to Prague. It's lovely to have you here. I'm an avid listener of the podcast, and I've prepared a doozy of a question, I hope, for you.
Excellent. Long-time listener, first time caller.
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty much. So we've been hearing about the pivot to Asia from the United States since pretty much the Obama administration, but it has had not a lot of tangible results. The only thing that's really happened is AUKUS, boosting up the Royal Australian Navy with their submarine program, and the reactivation of some former American bases in the Philippines. But it's always been a bilateral structure. It was a host country and the U.S., another host country and the U.S. So my question for you is there an effort from the United States administration to set up a multilateral alliance structure akin to NATO in the Indo-Pacific region?
You want to go first?
Well, we have the Quad, right? So that's actually a really important alliance with Japan, Australia, India, and the United States. And in fact, we're actually relying on the Quad to pull these allies together as a unit to counter China and the threat from China on an economic level, but also in other ways. Looking at emerging technology and even things like subsea cable and maritime security. But I'm sure my colleagues probably have some additional thoughts here.
Well, yeah, I think, and the Quad's also putting together an investor network to bring American investors, Japanese investors, Indian investors, Australian investors to bear on the emerging technology sort of challenge, right? So that's another way in which I think the Quad is trying to function. And so I think there's a real opportunity here to really build up a alliance. Now, whether it's a NATO-like alliance, that's a harder one to think through because, India has always played the non-aligned role, right? So that I think makes it a harder question. But look, I think at some level, India's going to have to at some point in the near term make a call, right? Are they with China? Are they with the West? They're leaning our way, and they've seen some challenges on the border with their border disputes with China. But it's not clear the Indians, like the Europeans, frankly, have really woken up fully to the very real threat that China poses to the larger global order that's made us all successful.
Rudy, I don't think you're going to see a NATO for Asia. I think you're going to see kind of this network of different alliances for different purposes. The big thing driving that is China's own behavior to its neighbors. None of the neighbors like China and what it's doing. And so they're looking for other places where they can get support. And so they can't always go to each other because of some historical animosities and other kind of conflicts of interest. So you're seeing things like the Quad. You're seeing things like AUKUS. You're seeing, kind of the U.S. Kind of tripartite agreement between the U.S., South Korea, and Japan, which can be a difficult relationship, but has been successful so far, as kind of a network of alliances around the People's Republic of China, rather than one massive group like NATO.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Who's the next victim?
Hi, my name's John. I'm a longtime listener and first-time caller as well.
Yes, love that. Old school.
I have a question on Ukraine. I know that you just did an episode. The last episode was on Ukraine, and I know that that episode dealt with the kind of the on-again, off-again, on-again aid, military aid, and what is the impact of the unpredictability on the war effort. My question revolves around the bill in the Senate. I think it passed the Senate, or it seems like it will pass the Senate, which would be, let's say, the toughest sanctions bill that ever concocted. What are the odds that passes and gets signed by Trump? What do you think? I know it's
So
hard to predict
great,
Trump.
great question.
Impossible
I-
to predict Trump.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Well, but I think we know him better than we did 9 years ago. So people have
Not clear that's a good thing, by the way.
I'm not judging. I'm just saying I think we know him better. I think what President Trump is looking for is an end to the war. He's been fairly clear about that. I do think he means what he says. A lot of people are kind of unhappy with that because it may end up with Russia controlling massive parts of Ukraine, and that's not really fair. You shouldn't be benefiting from an invasion of a neighbor that didn't provoke you. And so it's going to be tough, but I think he's going to be pushing for a peace deal. And if he thinks, as it appears for the last few days, that Putin is the problem to getting some sort of peace deal, then you will see the Senate bill move. Because Trump has asked for it, I don't think the Senate's going to move independently of him. I think he's got plenty of support with Senate Republicans and with House Republicans, for that matter. So you're not going to see a Congress controlled by Republicans do anything antithetical to what Trump is trying to do here. So it'll move if Trump gives the head nod to Graham and Senator Thune and the folks who lead the Senate.
And what do you think the probability of that is?
That is the million-dollar question.
It looks higher and higher every day, right? Like every time we turn around, like Trump is saying something a little more critical of Putin or something a little more positive about Zelensky and Ukraine. So it does seem like it's pointing in that direction. I think whether it gets that far, we don't know yet.
Well, I think he's getting frustrated with Putin, right? I mean, he said he was going to have a peace within 24 hours of being sworn in, right? So I think more and more, he himself is discovering that Putin will not play ball and that Putin is not serious about peace. And I mean, I think we are seeing a little bit of an evolution. He's the one who actually said, no, we are sending things to Ukraine. After it was Pete Hegseth and Elbert Colby who were saying no. So, I mean, the funny thing is I think it's actually Trump himself who is more supportive of Ukraine, of helping Ukraine than his own, advisors. And frankly, like, look, if you're Donald Trump, you're looking at this and you're like, I'm being played. I'm being played by Vladimir Putin. And this does not feel good. It doesn't look good. I don't like it. So that's my prediction: is that he will view this as a great tool to have in his toolkit to try to get Putin to the table. Beyond that, I don't know what to predict.
Great question.
Great question.
Thanks. Bob, you're up.
Thank you. I'm Bob. I'm a proud American, regardless of who is in the White House.
Amen.
Permanent resident of the Czech Republic, also originally from Houston, Texas. And I'm tempted to go to the domestic side with the Brennan and Comey stuff, Russia. But because we are so close to Ukraine, and that situation is really the most pressing, I think, in Europe right now. My question involves Africa, which I understand is kind of an area of expertise for Les. The Russians, as I have been told, and I've kind of verified as best I can, are helping to finance their war, regardless of sanctions, by stealing gold from Sudan. How much of a factor is that? And if it is, what can the United States do to negate that?
Yeah, it's again another great question from our Fault Lines community. So
First time guy.
yeah. So Africa has long been, a place where there are weak governments, and it's been very easy for kind of outside groups or countries to exploit opportunities inside Africa. So what Russia is doing in Sudan is nothing new. It's doing it in other places in the continent, kind of across the Sahel from Sudan all the way out to the west towards Burkina Faso and Mali. It's causing all kinds of trouble, exploiting natural resources, exploiting weak governments, exploiting kind of animus against the West, particularly France. And some other local politics, but using it to its advantage. How can the U.S. stop it? The U.S. had, until now, been having a pretty robust presence in sub-Saharan Africa, both militarily, diplomatically, and a lot of aid programs. To be totally honest, the last administration, the Biden administration, screwed up some of those military relationships. We could talk about that for a while. The current administration has decided to end a lot of the aid programs, which were the basis of a lot of U.S. engagement in the region. USAID and a lot of other programs. I don't particularly think that's a good idea. It's got to be replaced by something that's going to do a better job, but I have yet to see what that's going to be. So I think this is a real active question for this administration right now. Given what you've torn down, how are you going to rebuild something that actually advances U.S. national interests in sub-Saharan Africa in a cost-effective way and actually gets the job done? There's no answer to that right now. So that's the onus is on the president and Congress for that matter, because they've agreed to a lot of this destruction. They need to come up with something as an alternative.
Right, and you also have to remember, Port Sudan is right there. That's been something that the Russians have wanted for some time, and it's right there at the Red Sea, and so we already have problems at the Red Sea with the Houthis, and now that Iran has been weakened, that helps, right? The Houthis have been weakened as well, but nonetheless, the longest time the Russians they were in Syria and they wanted Port Sudan to have almost like this pincher move on the Red Sea, but for sure their presence in Sudan and across Africa is and has been extremely problematic and not helpful to any of the people in these countries.
But how much, to the specific point of funding the war, the gold reserves, are they sufficient enough to support the Russian war effort against Ukraine, regardless of sanctions?
In and of themselves, no, but it certainly helps. And Russia's can be cost effective, and they're operating on the edge, and they're not paying their conscriptees a ton of money. So this is a cheap war for them compared to how much it would cost us. But this stuff can be a factor. They need to do a lot more than that. They need help from Iran, from North Korea, from these other places. But this is one thing they're trying to do to help their war effort. You're right.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming to Prague. Good to see you.
All right. Hey, Les, Margaret. Nice to see you in person. Not only listening to you. My name is Henry. I'm a permanent resident of this bar, and also a news and whiskey addict. I just want to follow up. You mentioned the Houthis, and one of the things that comes to mind in the same region that didn't come up in the same sentence or same topic was the Persian Gulf. So what is the probability in your estimation that there will be a normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia by the midterms?
By the midterms?
I'm gonna go with I think it's pretty high that they're going to get an agreement. This is already in process. Trump is pushing for this pretty hard. Netanyahu, who is obviously a key player in a lot of stuff going on in the region, also seems to be very interested in it. I think he's willing to make some compromises, particularly with the Sunni Arab states. And if he can get Saudi Arabia to do it, it's a huge, big deal, no doubt, and would change the architecture of the Middle East to kind of be more accurately reflect that situation that's actually on the ground, where Israel and the Sunni Arab states have been cooperating against Iran for a long time. This would kind of formalize that. That's going to be important because as Iran gets pushed into the corner and becomes less of a threat to its neighbors, you're going to want to lock down some of these good relationships. So I think there's an incentive to do it fairly quickly. It looks like they're making a lot of progress. It's not easy. Some of it's going to depend on the situation of the Palestinians for sure and getting a resolution to Gaza. But right now it looks like they're on their way.
Yeah, I just have to say, even though I have not been, I've been a critic of this administration on many foreign policy issues, the Middle East is actually one where they have actually done pretty well. Even though, some people have criticized the actions in Iran or against Iran, but Saudis, I'm sure are very happy about this. And this makes the region safer for the Saudis and the Israelis. And I would not be surprised if the Trump administration pulled this off. They pulled off the Abraham Accords in the previous term, and they have definitely surprised me in a good way on the Middle East.
Can I just ask one follow-up question? Is there a reason why Trump is able to do this where no one was able to do it before, or is he just lucky?
Well, he was willing to kind of break the mold on the U.S. foreign policy approach to the Middle East in his first term. The first four Abraham Accords countries, let's see if I can get them all right, Sudan, Morocco, UAE, there's one other one, Bahrain, all did Abraham Accords with Israel. That was in the first Trump administration because he was willing to throw out the old model where we really kind of leaned into the Palestinian question. He's put that on the back burner, maybe a little bit further. You can't take it totally off the stove, though. You're going to have to deal with that. The Saudis have said that, so there's got to be an arrangement there. But Trump and his team from the first term were willing to kind of break the China in the shop on this, and that's, to be fair, to some extent to the Biden administration. Biden administration kept a lot of those conversations going, and they didn't do anything to totally screw it up. They made some mistakes in the Middle East, I would argue, but they did kind of keep this model going. So it wasn't hurt by Trump's 4 years out of office. So him kind of picking it up and moving with it seems pretty logical.
Well, and I think the Biden administration really shot themselves in the foot with the Saudis. He even went to go try to kind of make good with the Crown Prince, and I don't think he did a very good job. I mean, I think it was yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, so you got to think about it from that standpoint. I think when Trump came to office, these Arab partners were very happy about that. The Democrats were very critical of the Saudi government, and look, there's good reasons to be to criticize. But I think the Trump foreign policy is much more, as everyone says, is transactional and even pragmatic. And so sometimes, they're not adhering to, pushing for human rights, and democracy, and I think, that's working for President Trump.
Thanks.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alan.
Hi there. My name is
Hojo.
Henry, but also known as Hojo, not to be confused with the other Henry. I'm also another long-term progger. My question is what do you see the succession plan in Russia after, short-term, long-term, 10 years or 20 years? Something's going to be different.
All right. I don't
That's
think
a tough one.
I don't think we know. Notably, Putin has eliminated a lot of his kind of more dovish domestic opponents. So Alexei Navalny, he killed in the Siberian prison. Other folks he's eliminated one way or the other. So a lot of the kind of democratic opposition, not totally gone, but Putin has done a rather brutal job of making sure those guys aren't a real factor in Russian politics right now. That could change, and I hope it does. But right now he's kind of limited them. So if you saw kind of Putin ousted tomorrow, or get hit by a bus, or have a massive coronary, he's likely to be replaced by someone who's even more of a hardliner. The Ukraine question is that Putin has the answer to, which is invading Ukraine. There are plenty of Russians who support that view. We need to be very realistic here. This is not just one man. There's a lot of people in Russia who are very upset with Ukraine over some kind of deep philosophical, historical reasons. And it's entirely likely that Putin gets replaced by someone who's even more of a hardliner on this terrible question than he is. So we all need to be very kind of, I think, realistic about the things that could happen in the future there.
Any prospects that Medvedev come back?
That doesn't seem likely. I understand he's, folks are making a lot of memes about him, and kind of become a bit of a joke, particularly with younger folks. But and here in Prague, we've heard from some of our friends here that he's seen in a humorous vein. It doesn't seem realistic to me. I think there's other people who have been jockeying for a position who may be more effective,
But they're not really known to us, or
I don't think we know, unless you're in a skiff somewhere. I don't think we really know.
all right, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Hello there. My name's Wade. Longtime fan, friend, brother, friend, home, etc. I have a little bit of a unique twist to my background. I've lived in Russia, China, communist countries, Muslim countries, UAE, Hebrew, Jewish countries, Israel, USA. My questions, and I have a couple, so bear with me. The first one is about media and how I view media in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, in particular Russia, Asia, in particular China, and the United States. They all seem a little bit similar to me in this day and age. And I think you get and I'd like to think that I'm pretty even keeled. I think you get a pretty biased perspective depending on who you watch. But the thing that I'm the most puzzled and troubled by at the same time is that there seems to be a monopoly on the major networks. And I know Trump's pulling money back with PBS, trying to, I don't know, to dissolve them. I don't know. I'd hate to see that happen, but I think there needs to be a little bit less bias from them. Why did it happen? How did it happen in terms of the ownership and the perspectives being pushed, from Fox and then the other networks, the other 5 or 6 major that are owned by Democrats and influenced by Democrats as well. And what are your thoughts on that? And do you think it's healthy in terms of the information that we get, the flow of it? And do you view that as being unbiased, and do you view it as being fair?
Do you mean PBS in particular, or?
I mean, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, they're all CNN by big Democrat, which in particular Fox is owned by a rich Republican. But it seems to me like there's more of a monopoly on those big companies being owned by certain, and there's a certain perspective, in my opinion, that's being slanted and given, just as there is with Fox. I believe you see both. I was never a big fan of News Nation, but I like it because I seem to get what I think is a pretty fair perspective in terms of both sides. I just wish that those other majors were more like they were. Mm-hmm. I don't remember seeing a lot of problems at the border on the major networks. I don't remember they're talking about monies that were being deposited through 48 shell companies into the 11 or 12 members of the Biden family from China, Russia, and the Ukraine. I saw it a lot and read it a lot on a couple other networks and publications. There's certain things that just, to me, I was a little bit embarrassed about, and it reminded me about how China and Russia can control their media outlets and basically push their agenda and their perspective in anything that they don't like or want to push. They don't. So you're not always getting both sides.
I mean, I would actually my question back to you would be, how powerful are they really? Because when I see what my kids consume, I don't think that the newer generations are actually getting their news from these networks. And that's a problem in and of itself, because, some get it from TikTok, some get it from, Facebook, some get it from, from YouTube Shorts, right? And, people should get their news from all lines, but no. but I it is interesting because, back in the 80s, there were just like 3 networks, right? It was CBS, NBC, ABC, and that's where most Americans got their news. It was like the 6 o'clock news, and you would watch it with your family, and you could pretty much take it to the bank, right? Although I think in retrospect, some people do criticize the news even back then as having, a little bit of a slant one way or another, right? But information is power, right? So the question is where is that actually being consumed? And I feel like we're actually just very siloed and very not bifurcated, but divided. It's kind of segmented. Yeah, it's we have a segmented society, and so you bring up some really interesting, I guess, questions on my end and observations about just how people get their news at all. But I do agree on News Nation. I think they do a good job. We actually know News Nation quite a lot, and they do seem very even and try to keep it pretty straightforward. Do you have any thoughts?
I actually think the situation is a lot better than it used to be when there were just 3 networks and everyone kind of trusted them and accepted the line that they gave us, even though they did have some biases. Now where people don't really trust these networks. They kind of surf around and they look at different viewpoints and they realize there's a lot of different approaches out there. You got to make up your own mind at the end of the day. And so making sure you get a good spectrum of views and you kind of see how everyone takes a look at things. Sometimes there are two different views of the same event, and they're both legitimate views. You know, the U.S. is a divided country on politics and a lot of other stuff. Doesn't mean one side's always right, the other side's always wrong. Sometimes it's just a different interpretation of the same event. And so best to kind of scan the horizon and kind of see what's out there, and then make up your own mind and realize there's, you know, the guy sitting next to you may have a different interpretation of that same thing. Right. All right.
Hello.
We're gonna go fast. Lightning round.
Also a long-term viewer, first-time caller.
All right. Welcome. Welcome.
We had a lot of very specific questions, very specified to one thing. My question is more broad, and that is, we have a lot of local conflicts going on in the world. What do you think is the risk that it's going to turn into a more global conflict?
So quickly, I would say one of my favorite people to read is a guy named Walter Russell Mead, who writes a column in the Wall Street Journal. He's got a pretty good podcast himself. And he, in the last few months, maybe going back a year or two, has been saying we're closer to a World War III than we have been in a long time. He's very concerned about the rise of Russia, China, Iran, cooperation with North Korea. These four countries, maybe a handful of others, much smaller ones kind of helping out, working together against the West and the United States and the Czech Republic. I think those prospects for World War III are much lower than they were a few months ago. I think the fact that Trump was willing to hit Iran, that Iran is now isolated, Iran is on its back foot, it's lost a ton of capability. Neither China nor Russia have come to its assistance, notably, at least not in any way that I've been able to see. I think it's a huge factor. So I actually think we're at a much better spot than we were 6 months ago, and certainly a much better spot than we were 3 or 4 years ago. So I think things are going in the right direction. Doesn't mean you can relax, though, young man.
Well, I agree. At the same time, I think we already have a global conflict, and I think it's being carried out as hybrid conflict. We see it in cyber attacks. It might be something that we're not seeing every day. It's not kinetic, but these
and there was a cyber attack here in the Czech Republic that was announced yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so the power outage. So it happened. You know.
It wasn't the power outage. We can edit
wasn't,
that out.
sorry. We'll edit that out.
Edit that out.
Okay, so it wasn't the power outage. But the bottom line is, Russia, Iran, and China are attacking Europe. They're attacking the United States every day, and we're talking like billions of attempts. So we're facing this. Look at the undersea cables. And so that's like a constant threat up in the Baltic and the North Sea. It's also a threat, like something to be concerned about in the South China Sea as well. All of that could collapse our financial networks like that. So I guess yes, I agree that we're in a better place now because Iran has been weakened, and that way Iran was a very important piece of the puzzle between these countries. But nonetheless, we can't let our guard down because Russia and China are going strong, and they are continuing to find ways to infiltrate and find ways to undermine our countries.
Okay, thank you.
One more. All right, no, you're up. What do you got?
BRICS. China didn't show up. Is that significant?
Great question. Xi Jinping didn't show up. I think he sent one of his minions.
Yeah.
They did go. Trump has been going straight at BRICS,
Yeah.
which is good. It's very much against our interest to have these guys be successful. I think we're in a better place than we were a year ago.
Does that necessarily indicate any upheaval in China?
Well, we did a little podcast on this a week ago. There's some talk that Xi Jinping may be in trouble in Beijing. Some of his allies in the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, have been pushed out. That could be very significant. So we'll see.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
All right. Well, Thanks everybody for tuning in. We're so excited to be with our listeners live and in person here in Prague. We're so grateful to have these listeners in Prague, and grateful to be here. Please.
And we're thrilled to be at Max's
So this is Max Munson. He owns Max's Steakhouse. It is an excellent place to eat.
Yes.
I've done it myself.
a short but good-looking fellow.
It was our pleasure to have NSI here. You know, we've been hoping for it, and thank you very much for coming and making this podcast a reality for all of the fans here and me, and I appreciate it very much.
Not free whiskey.
Yeah, please come eat at Max's Steakhouse.
Yes.
When you're in Prague. Well, on that note, I think that's a wrap. We will see you guys on our regular podcast. Thanks for tuning in.